In March of 1982, I wandered into a B. Dalton bookstore. My mom had taken us to the Thruway Mall in order to kill time while my brother was at a drum lesson at nearby Buffalo Drum Outlet. And while I was at that B. Dalton bookstore and I was wandering through the RPG section, I stumbled into my first ever issue of Dragon Magazine, number 81. And in that moment, I fell in love with the idea of house rules and third-party content. This video is all about house rules and the house rules that I use at my table, and we are going to talk about not only stuff that I have written, but also things that I have stolen from Shadowdark and Knave that you should use at your table too. All right, before we get into it, if you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment down below. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That is only possible with the efforts of people like yourself. And so, yeah, and as you all know, it pushes things in the algorithm. Additionally, if you want to support Breaker Press further, you can pick up a PDF through DriveThruRPG or itch.io. You can go to get physical stuff through the Goodman Games web store, Noble Knight, Exalted Funeral, or my own Breaker Press web store. And then finally, if you want to support in the best way possible, become a member on Patreon. By becoming a member on Patreon, you make sure that I have stable income coming in every month. And in exchange, you get cool stuff in the mail on a regular basis, 12 things a year. Things like the Leech class, which just shipped a couple of days ago, or Night Falls on Tower Genulane, which is a carousing table. So really cool stuff that you'll want to use at your table, especially if you check out my standard setting. There's a lot of stuff that you can pull into your own thing, or that you can use with my standard setting. So yeah, talking about that, let's talk about what I use at my table, because this is all about house rules and things that I love to use at the table. And it all began with my DCC journey in 2017. I got the quick start guide, then got the rule book, fell in love with the idea behind the rules. I didn't read the rule book all the way through, but I started writing stuff right away because I was just that excited. My brain just filled in the blanks with what I remembered of AD&D from when I was a kid. So I ran my first couple of sessions, and in those sessions, two things happened. One, my players, their characters leveled up. And in one case, one of the characters, he had his heart set on being a ranger. And so I wanted to maintain that no heroes ethos of Dungeon Crawl Classics. And so rather than do a straight ranger archetype, I decided to pull from one of my favorite non-traditional AD&D classes. In Best of Dragon Volume 4, there was the bandit class. And so I always loved that outdoorsy rogue type of feel. And so I ended up writing the Outlier. At the same time as I was writing the Outlier, one of my players, their shepherd died, and the herding dog became the heart of the party, did all sorts of cool stuff in the game. And so, of course, the canine had to level up, and that is how the canine came to be. Those things became the basis of my first zine that I launched at Zine Quest 2, which was Rabid Dogs, and started me on this path of all of the things that I have created. So house rules are an opportunity to engage in game design yourself, and it is something that I think is a wonderful thing. So fast forward to 2020. I'm working on my second adventure, Wide-Eyed Terror, and I felt that I really wanted to embrace the vibes that I had created around Stennard, the atmosphere and the feel. And so I just created a basic weather table, and it was just a D6 table, but almost all of the results are rain, fog, and cloudiness, just general miserable weather, very autumnal, but in the worst way possible. And only on a 6 did you end up with a clear day. And so this was something that I used at my table on a regular basis. I would roll it multiple times per session as the players advanced, through the session. So that evolved into full rules that I ended up publishing in Tragedy at Woodwitch Rise a couple of years ago. And so if you are curious about the full rules for weather, basically I'm just using the dice chain. If it's steady rain, the dice chain, you go down on the dice chain. If it is torrential rain, you go down further on the dice chain. Basic stuff that you could do on your own without actually having my rules, but I do support you picking up Tragedy at Woodwitch Rise. It's a great adventure. Around that same time, I was watching a lot of Ben Milton videos. I still watch most of Ben Milton's stuff, otherwise known as Questing Beast. And he had talked about a game that he had written that fit on a double-sided pamphlet, the size of this pamphlet right here, called Knave. And so I decided to go and check this out on DriveThruRPG, and two things in that pamphlet I fell in love with. One was the idea of the copper standard, and immediately it just fit the very poor vibes of standard. And so I dropped the whole gold standard and put in new prices for all of the equipment at my table, all on a copper standard. Some of it I pulled from the old AD&D rule books, some from Knave. Eventually, when Shadowdark came out, I pulled some of the prices for things from Shadowdark because I'd do the price comparison. What was the thing that I predicted? Oh, and this item is on the Shadowdark list. Let me see what they charge. Oh, and so adjust accordingly. But the other thing that I pulled from Knave that I thought was a fantastic adaptation, I think that encumbrance is something that is very important. You will see in most RPGs I've played 5e where people are they couldn't possibly walk. They have so much equipment, and I just don't like that vibe. I am a survival horror adventurer. I think that things should be difficult for the adventurers, and they should make hard choices about what they bring along with them. And so I looked at the encumbrance rules from Knave, and I decided to make my own tweaks to it. In my case, I actually, and these rules are published in Rabid Dogs Volume 2, along with all of my equipment prices at a copper standard. Your stamina, straight, whatever your stamina stat is how many items you can carry. So if you have a 16 stamina, you can carry 16 items. If you've got a 3 stamina, you can carry 3 items. And if you carry more than half of your stamina in items, then your action die goes down by 1 from a standard D20 to a D16, because there's a price to be paid for being fully encumbered. Now, you'll notice that Knave used strength and I used stamina, and that's because I was a mover for years. And I feel, based upon my experiences, lots of people are strong and can carry something or pick something up for a few moments, but it is stamina that allows you to carry things for great periods of time. So you should check that out. If you want to add encumbrance to into your games, as I said, it's in Rabid Dogs Volume 2, or check out Knave First Edition or Second Edition. So, let's talk about experience points and something called Stars and Wishes. So, during the pandemic, my friend Jex Thomas was running a bunch of Forged in the Dark games, and something that they used at the table with my play group was something that they stumbled upon in a blog called The Gauntlet RPG, called Stars and Wishes. And the idea was that at the end of every session, you would highlight all of your favorite moments by nominating stars, and then you would also give wishes for things that you would like to see happen in the campaign in the future. And at its core, I really liked this concept, and I wanted to see it adapted to Dungeon Crawl Classics in a meaningful way. And so, since Dungeon Crawl Classics is an experience points game, and I want to the whole point of experience points is rewarding certain behaviors, and I wanted to see my players do more dramatic and dynamic things. You will hear me say the words live fully, die gloriously. That's where that came from. And so I adapted the Stars and Wishes concept, where I go around the table, and I've mentioned this on Reddit a bunch of times. I go around the table and I have every player at the end of the session nominate somebody else, something that somebody else did that they enjoyed, that was their favorite moment, and then something that somebody else did that was the most useful moment. And the whole point of favorite and useful is because they are often two different things. Somebody throwing themselves, into the pit of vipers in order to, try and save something, and then they die gloriously in the pit of vipers. That is going to be a favorite thing, but not necessarily a useful thing. Whereas useful often will highlight those more cautious players that will be doing the most advantageous thing for the party. And so how it works is I give 2 XP for every nomination that somebody's moment was their favorite, and that's to a PC. So 2 XP to that PC, and then 2 XP to any most useful moment. If somebody thinks that it is the dynamic between multiple, then I'll give 1 to each of the characters that engaged in that particular moment. This is a really useful way to reward your players and encourage that sort of behavior, that dynamic. I am going to throw myself into the fray type behavior that you want to see at the table in an old school game. Moving on from Stars and Wishes, which wishes is also a good concept. I don't codify that in any type of rules, and I often forget to ask. It's more something that I discuss with my players at lunch or over text, but it is a useful thing as well, and I recommend that you consider doing it. Moving on, let's talk about luck. And so at my table, you will see on Reddit, a lot of people will talk about fleeting luck. It's something that was in the Lankmar rule set. I don't think of it as being a house rules, because it is actually from a Goodman product, an actual DCC product. It's just something that worked really well with the idea of the fact that there's no clerics and no halflings in DCC Lankmar. But I don't use fleeting luck. I actually came up with my own luck rules. They were published in Pervasive Corruption, this pamphlet right here. And I call it Insidious Luck. And Insidious Luck is I put 6 flies in the middle of the table, and at any point during the game, if somebody wants to bump up one of their die rolls, they can pull a fly. Or all of the flies. Those flies go to me, and then I can bump up my dice rolls at whatever time sees fit. When I use the flies myself, they then go back to the table, and there's this push and pull that happens throughout the game. Because there are going to be moments where players are not going to want to use their luck, or they don't have the luck available in order to bump up their dice rolls. And so they need to use those flies to make things happen. And that is when that PC that I miss by 2 on the D20 or whatever, that's that moment or where I bump up the damage to deliver a killing blow because of the hubris of my players. Insidious Luck is a fantastic rule. It gets lots of accolades at the convention games that I run. Highly recommend. Check out Pervasive Corruption. There's what you can go and pick up on Drive-Thru RPG in order to support further. So, in that same pamphlet, I actually have the rules for famine, taint, and scarcity. And this is an interesting thing. My players, when I describe how miserable Stennard is, how everybody is cold and hungry and, all the crops rotted in the ground, and then they would go to the tavern and they would be like, why is it that the tavern always has food? And so that got me thinking. And so now when they go into the tavern, they have to make a luck check for there to still be any red stew left. And as each PC goes, I have them make a new luck check. And when somebody fails, then I'm like, scrape, scrape, scrape. That was the end of the red stew. This is a really fun way in order to add that grittiness of survival horror to your games. But it was a house rule that I had to create because my players felt that they needed that in order to really be immersed in the feel of my miserable, grimdark survival horror setting of Stennard. So yeah, check that out. There's one last thing to talk about, and this is something that I fell in love with in 2022. Because in 2022, Kelsey Dion ended up launching her Kickstarter for Shadowdark. And Shadowdark has, both Shadowdark and Knave have a ton of tables that you can pull fantastic stuff from to use in your games. I've used those to inspire different bits of equipment, costs for my copper, the encumbrance rules, and looking at how did the slots vary between Knave and Shadowdark, and how many slots an item takes up. These were all things that I dig into because I love that sort of thing. But so, while this Kickstarter for Shadowdark was going on, they explained the torch timer. And it just so happened that I had just recently released an adventure called Cleft in the Mangled Hills. And in Cleft in the Mangled Hills, there is a mechanic where every 15 minutes, I set a timer, and every 15 minutes, the timer goes off, and then I tell the players that there is a sound of a crash and a rush, and then water fills into the dungeon. And so the water level in the dungeon starts at ankle level, and then it goes to calf level, to knee level, etc., etc. And so every 15 minutes, and it puts so much pressure on the players to get in and get out. And so when I discovered the torch timer and this idea of a timer being set for your torches. If the torches go out, then the monsters can attack you, but you are going to be at a disadvantage attacking them. All of these elements, I felt it creates wonderful tension, and I immediately pulled that into my games before Shadowdark was even out on the market. And so those are some of the house rules that I use at my table at this point. When I run Dungeons & Crawl Classics, I've written 12 classes. In fact, the next one's coming out soon, the Proselytizer. But I use a lot of house rules, but Dungeon Crawl Classics is my bones. And then everything else is stuff that I pull in and build on top of that in order to create the feel that I want at my table. I hope this was beneficial to you, whether you're running a standard campaign or you just want the inspiration to make your campaign your own. House rules are a wonderful thing, and they are part of the role-playing game tradition dating back to its roots. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for supporting indie games and indie game designers. Live fully, die gloriously, and I will catch you in the next one.